Hey guys, welcome back to Talk Tech Talk. I know it's been a minute. Summer has been busy for everybody. Hope everyone's having a good summer, enjoying the beach, enjoying just the weather in summer. It's a different vibe. I'm here joined by none other than Adriel Ramirez, and obviously I am Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, a variant at
A
least.
special guest.
Yeah. It's hard. It took a lot of money to get me here. But yeah, obviously we're here to talk about X-Men. No, we're here to talk about Deadpool Wolverine, the third installment in the Deadpool franchise, written by none other than Ryan Reynolds. And I'm sorry, I'm a little blind right now, guys, but I'm gonna try to read all these things. Uh, Contains Hugh Jackman, Emma Corrin, and its director is Sean Levy. And Sean Levy has a freaking filmography, dude. Like
He's pretty. He has some good some movies under his belt.
he works with Ryan Reynolds a lot, so you could just see the relationship with the director actors really well. And I didn't even know Ryan Reynolds was writing a lot. I know he's involved in a lot of the decisions when it comes to Deadpool, but I just didn't know he had a writing credential on this project.
Yeah, well, I know. I think that's why the movies are like kind of so spaced out. It's because
Mm.
he usually does like he's so involved. Like he's such like a heavy producing credit on this, like on all three of these movies that every time they start to do a Deadpool, he's like so invested. That's why he said that more likely than not, there's probably not going to be a Deadpool 4 because he's like quote unquote his wife will divorce him because how like invested he is in doing these movies.
Yeah,
Because like I'm pretty sure it's like it just 24/7 with this kind of movie. Like at this point, I think he's just synonymous with Deadpool. Deadpool's him, and he's Deadpool. So yeah,
yeah, and she got a little play in the fun this time around too. She got
yeah.
her a
Which
little.
I'm glad it was her, and I'm glad it wasn't Taylor Swift. I was like super nervous, and then even though you don't really see her face, you can
Yeah,
obviously I found out like during the credit, like I was actually looking for her name to see who it
yeah,
was, but I don't know. I'm just so glad it was her and not Taylor Swift. But it was good. It was good fun. Little family involvement in this movie, and then even the other callback that he had during the movie when he was like about was it Gossip Girls or Gilmore Girls, one of the two, and he was like
yeah,
about talking about the bone or whatever. So
yeah,
he definitely, and then he even name drops her too when there was some other
yeah.
part in the scene and then another movie, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna tell Blake," and like, "Oh, he's bringing her up again."
Yeah, the fourth wall breaking was a little different take this time around. But yeah, I could agree. Like him bringing Blake into the picture, and like it was, I think the quote was like, "There's 206 bones in the human body, 207 when I'm watching Gossip Girl."
Yeah,
Originally, Blake Lively's like, and I liked Gossip Girl, but like I'm not ashamed to admit it. It was a good show growing up. And then it was weird how I went through the rabbit hole of their relationship by just watching this movie, and I was like, "Yo, there's a lot of like Hollywood, like this person dated this person, this it was like a whole tree line thing." But yeah, all the Deadpool cameos and all that stuff that happened as far as different Deadpools, like I was like, "Yo, this person's in it, this person voiced it." Like it was
Matthew
all good.
McConaughey. I feel
Yeah,
like
man.
that's one that kind of went over a lot of people's head. That Matthew McConaughey voice was a cowboy pool or whatever his like official name is, but the fact that
Yeah.
he officially like voiced one of the Deadpools, I thought that was really cool. And then I guess his kids were Kid Pool and Baby Pool. I guess those are
Yep.
Ryan Reynolds like actual kids.
Yeah.
Like his whole family was like in this thing.
Yeah. And then yeah, it was really family oriented. I would say this so we get to just diversify this conversation a bit. Did you think that Disney s- like stamp on this movie withheld it or strengthened the movie in a whole?
I think it strengthened it because like they were able to use those as like punchlines throughout the
Mm.
movie as well. Like obviously the biggest running punchline for the whole like in the marketing and even in the movie was about how they couldn't talk about cocaine or they couldn't do like cocaine on in the like in the movie or whatever. But still like that's whole like blind out shtick. It's like that she's on drugs. That's her thing. But I felt like it really strengthened it. There was not too much that I can think of off the top of my head, at least right now. Maybe it'll come up later that Disney kind of really shortened them on. Like I felt like even though it's technically under the MCU banner and it's under it's inside Disney and everything now,
Yeah,
it didn't really feel like that. It still felt like it was from previous Deadpool movies. So I don't think it lessened it in any way for sure. Like except if anything, it just gave them more running jokes to play with. If anything,
yeah.
how about you? How about did you feel anything about it or?
So I had mixed opinions about it. Like obviously I'm a fan of R-rated Deadpool and I wanted the full extent of it, but it's still a Disney movie which has to be marketed that yo, we're not going to go super crazy like you did in the other movies. But it was still pretty crazy as far as the Deadpool movie goes. And one of the things that I was telling my friends, I was like, did Disney make this movie or did this movie wait, did the MCU save this movie or did this movie save the MCU? And I think it's the latter, right? Where Deadpool really hiding the new filmography and callbacks and all that stuff. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing. Like it's similar to Endgame and Infinity War, where like they're time traveling and you're getting all these callbacks. I could do this all day. That is America's ass. All that, all those things. Like it's developed because you have all of these things you could pull from. You could pull from the original X Men trilogy. You could pull from Fantastic Four. You could pull from X Men lore with the main villain and all that stuff. And it goes into even Elektra, all this stuff. Like all these properties that happen that are Fox own. And then that's when I was like, oh, what's really Disney about this film? It's like, oh, the sacred timeline. But like, I feel like they could have made this movie without the sacred timeline if they really wanted to. But it just, let's. It's more of that Disney. Hey, we shook hands on creating a Spider-Man movie together. Hey, let's shake hands on making a Deadpool movie together. And I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm down with it. Which I will say, just to throw this out there, I respected this team up of Deadpool better than I respected any of the Spider-Man team ups. I like the Spider movies. Let me not get canceled. Hear me out. This single movie was better than the Spider-Man intrusion into the MCU.
I'm glad you said that because I 100% agree with you. Like I'm maybe I don't know. I feel like I'm probably one of a handful of people that I don't dislike No Way Home, but I don't feel like it's as good as everyone makes it out to be. And I feel
Yeah,
that's because a lot of it is dependent on, the third act cameos that are there. So I feel like and then the story that they had, even though they were great and I feel like it was still a good movie, I felt like the cameos that we had in this movie were a lot stronger to where I feel like they're not even really cameos at that point. They're like, what are they? How do you want to say? Like they're
callbacks.
minor characters in the movie in the third act. Like that's how
Yeah,
big of a role the other cameos are. Like I don't want to spoil the cameos yet because I want to wait till we get to that kind of topic later
yeah,
on during this open discussion. But
yeah,
yeah, I feel like if it was a who's who on who did it better, this movie definitely did it a lot better than Spider-Man No Way Home because I don't know. I just felt like the storyline was a lot better in this movie
yeah,
than in that movie. The cameos, at least for me, with all the Wolverine, what are they called, variants that they
yeah,
had, amazing. They were all good. I liked
yeah,
how he like Ryan Reynolds was able to like play off them a lot. Those ones, the cameos that we're getting to later on, were all really good. I don't think there was one cameo in this movie that they had that I felt like was that's just fan service. Like everything
yeah,
felt really earned in this movie, and it felt like,
yeah,
oh, this person's supposed to be in there because it makes a lot of sense to the storyline, and not just,
yeah,
oh, we need this nostalgia factor, so let's throw them in there just to have them in there. Literally everyone, even Happy Hogan being in there, like it
yeah,
felt like, okay, yeah, like yeah, that Happy would be the person he talks to when Tony Stark's not in the office, because
yeah.
I felt like that's something that every single cameo that was made in this movie really served a purpose, really drove the story along, and it just made sense to have them in there.
Yeah, so this is where I will agree with you. I think that every other thing after the Wolverine montage wasn't fan service. It belonged in the film.
Yeah,
That scene of the montage was fan service because we got a bunch of cameos and a bunch of versions of Wolverine. And I love when movie shows and all of them do that, where they do like little what ifs. Like the What If series is one of the best series in the whole Disney Plus thing. But like, hey, let's just play around with some of these, right? Like, let's play around with the lore and all that stuff and different variants and all that stuff. And they did the variant thing 100 times better than they did with the King and Conqueror thing. And I was like, yo,
yes,
this is great. And I would argue that it's better than the Loki variant. Like
yeah,
because we only got Sylvie that really like shines out to me, and then all the other Lokis were like whatever. But getting like
alligator.
these different versions of like Wolverine, which I was gonna ask you, what's your favorite variant that they showed?
Oh man, so it has to be like hands down when they first started it. I was really really big fan of the what is it like the comic accurate one because
Yeah, dude.
when they first show him, it's just Hugh. He's just normal. And then when he
Yeah,
stands up, he's short and hairy, and it was like, oh, comic accurate. I was like, okay, that's funny. But I think as I went along, I think the one that became my favorite was the Cavalry, because that's the one that
dude.
one got me by surprise. Like that's like a real deep cut. Like if a lot of
Yeah,
people don't know, like they're trying to as they're trying to recast Wolverine. Henry
yeah,
Cavill was obviously one of the ones. Daniel Radcliffe, which when they showed Patch, I thought that
yeah,
was going to be Daniel Radcliffe, but it ended up
yeah,
being Hugh Jackman again. But I would say just to kind of encompass everything, definitely the Cavalry was definitely my favorite, especially because how jacked he was in that movie, like or in that
yeah,
scene, still made it seem like with how far enough away that the he was like still how do I want to say like he was. It still looked like Hugh Jackman. So when he by
yeah,
the time he turned around and it was in Henry Cavill, I freaked
yeah,
out. And then he did that a whole little arm thing from Mission Impossible. So I was like,
yeah.
"Yo, bro, like this is they put like so much into that small amount that he was on there, and then the fact that Henry Cavill himself likes to do like he's a DIY person, I guess. So the fact
Yeah,
that his Wolverine was the one making or putting together the bike, I felt like
yeah,
really fit there. Like there was a lot of other ones like the one that really surprised me that was actually in there. Not necessarily my favorite, but really surprised me was the Uncanny X-Men one when he's on the X. Like
yeah.
I didn't think that would ever get mentioned anywhere. So the fact that put that in there that was good. And then when he pointed out the brown and the yellow costume, and he's like, "Hey,
OG suit.
that's the exact one that you're fighting the Hulk in," and then the Hulk's behind him. So I'm like, it was a really good. What do we call it? Like not cameos, but like that
X and all that
sequence.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like the sequence of that whole thing was really really good. I thought the whole thing, but definitely that one. My favorite was the Calverine. What about you though?
Like honestly, I would say I agree with you with the Calvary thing, just because like I was so anticipating like Henry Cavill is a gift to us that Hollywood is wasting.
Yes,
Like
yeah,
he could have been an amazing Man of Steel, which I think he still was. It just the plot of the movies were going really really left. Justice League, obviously, we saw the failure that became. But his little cameos and his little what he does with Witcher and all that stuff, anything nerdy, just put Henry Cavill in it, and I'll agree with it, dude. Like, I wanted him for Wolverine so badly. I was like, if
mhm,
anyone's gonna take it from Hugh Jackman, it's gotta be this dude,
yeah,
because he knows how to play the superhero really well. And getting that aspect, and even like little Deadpool's little comments to every single one, like you said, the brown and yellow. Say, hey, this is the suit you wore when you were fighting Wolverine, or the other guys when he talks to Henry Cavill. Don't worry, we'll take care of you. And unlike
yeah,
those other guys, and throwing shots at all the Justice League and WB and all that stuff. But well, I asked you this: was there any like variants of Wolverine that you were expecting to be brought out, or was there any like variants that would have wanted to see? Like obviously it was good enough for me,
oh
but is
yeah,
there
more
any
than good
variants
enough.
that you
Like I said,
thought?
I not that I wanted to see, but I anticipated that, and I'm not sure if this was before or after that they showed Henry Cavill as one of them.
Yeah,
But when he was walking up on Patch, that version
yeah,
of Wolverine, I for sure thought that was going to be Daniel Radcliffe, like
yeah,
just because he, like I said, he had been linked to him, and then another person who I thought they might have had in there at some point was going to be I don't know how to say his name was Adrian Tedgerton, the guy that's for those movies Kingsman, because he's
yeah,
he's linked heavily right now to being one of the Wolverines that they're going to cast too. So I thought he might
yeah,
have played in there. So maybe he's not in there because maybe he really is going to take his place, or maybe he's not in there because he's not going to be in as the new Wolverine. But maybe those two, I would say, probably the ones that I thought they were going to have in there. But everything that they showed for sure went above and beyond who my whole expectations of that like, little variance, I guess, of Wolverine. Because I just when at least in my mind going into the movie, I didn't know I wanted that
yeah,
because you got Hugh Jackman back, so I was like, oh, that's all I need. Like you got the guy
yeah,
back. Like there's no other person that I would want to see right now as the Wolverine. But then as I got
yeah,
everything else, I was like, you know what? Maybe I could have. This was the time to get that. That little cameo that we might not get later on because this was the
yeah.
time and place for it. But what about you? Did you have anyone that you wanted to kind of see?
I honestly was hoping that we got like an animated Wolverine. Like if they
That
been
would have
the
been
X
sweet.
Men '97, or they put him in kind of like what they did in Doctor Strange, where they went into the cartoon world, or even Spider Man, where they have like a different Spider Verses, like or a Lego Wolverine, or even like Deadpool walking in and going to like the '80s Wolverine animated series. Like any of those would have been good for me. Or even like I think there's like an artist called Wolverine, or like a musical artist, and it's just like it would have been like cool seeing like them just making jokes about it and things. But like I said, it was all good in my
Yeah.
opinion when it came down to the Wolverine montage. What about the cameos, man? Like there's a bunch of them. Like obviously we don't have well, we have enough time to name all of them, but which ones were you saying they were really good, or which ones were just throwaways for you?
So I'm gonna start it off by getting the low hanging fruit first. At least for me, I felt like the I guess I shot myself in the foot because I told myself for this movie I wasn't
Yeah,
gonna watch any trailers, and then
yeah,
the only trailer that I happened to watch was the last trailer that
yeah,
showed Daphne King's X-23. So I felt
yeah,
like that was the one, with especially in the movie, the way they were like, oh, there's the you three, and they're like, oh no, there's four of us, and then she
yeah,
comes down the stairs, and I'm like, it would have had a much bigger impact for the movie if I didn't know she was in there because of the trailer. They threw her in the trailer, and not
yeah,
to say that it ruined her part because I felt like she still played a significant part, but I felt like it would have been a better surprise for me if they didn't put her in the trailer. But with that being said, man, there's a whole long list. So buckle up, bro. There's so many good ones. So when they first introduced Chris Evans, I loved everything they did with that. They're showing the little red on his arm.
yeah.
He was covered up, so you really didn't know who it was at first. And then when they
Okay,
show
hold up.
him,
Let me stop you right there. I knew who it was off the bat because all
yeah,
my friend next to me, he was like, "It's Captain America," and I was like, even before
nah,
he took the hood off, and I was like, "Nah,
nah,
that's the Human Torch." Like, but the only
yeah,
reason that popped in was because seeing the 27th Century Fox, and I was like,
mm,
"Nah, bro." And as soon as I saw the X-Men people pull up, I was like, "Oh yeah, this is Human Torch. This is Human Torch."
yeah. So it's
Go
funny
ahead, go
how
ahead.
like how they even like want try to make you lead to thinking that it's Captain America with Deadpool. He's like, oh, he's gonna say it. He's like Avengers, and he's like flame on. So once that came on, I was like, yo, bro, I was like, this is dope. Cool callback. And then I like how they let. I felt like some of it was a little bit maybe going overboard a little bit, but it was a
Yeah,
Deadpool movie, so I kind of understand. But I
yeah,
like how they let Chris Evans get out of that Captain America shadow by like letting him cuss a whole lot and like
yeah,
letting him kind of be, Johnny Storm a little bit. Like I
yeah,
said, in some parts, I felt like you didn't need to throw in that cuss word there, or you didn't need it there. But
yeah.
overall, I think it was just trying to further separate Captain America and Johnny Storm a little bit. So I understand
Yeah.
it. So it was good. Yeah, pretty much. I think that's what they were trying to get the opposite
Yeah,
of, right?
yeah,
So like you said, you just hinted at it. All the X-Men characters that came up. You have Toad. You have Sabretooth. You have
yeah,
Pyro. I can't remember who else was right there at that point in time. But I felt like maybe it was supposed to be this way because they had to get to a bunch of other things in the movie. But I
yeah.
felt like when he just cut off Sabretooth's head, I was like, that's it? Like, you're not going to get
Dude,
any more of a fight? Like, what? Especially because they're like, oh, we've been waiting for this for 20 years. And then, God, it's over like that. I was like, oh, okay, that was cool.
yeah, because
And
I
then,
let me just interject right here. I think that's the problem with with a lot of us thought what it was gonna be. Oh, what you got in the trailer is what you're gonna get in the movie. And everyone with including with the X-23 final trailer, like everyone's like, you can't just show us everything in the trailer. Let us watch it in the movie and we'll be astonished by everything. And I was like, well, now that I watched it, I was like, oh, like as that scene, I was like, all right, we got Johnny Storm, but also the Sabretooth thing was like everything we got in the trailer is what we got.
yeah,
And then but I was like, wait, there's more? There's more? And then I was like, oh, X-23, that's X-23. And then like when you think it's gonna be X-23 coming in, it's all the other people.
yeah.
But like, go ahead, my bad. I just
No,
had
you're
to say
good.
that right now.
That's what I like about the whole open discussion format. We
Yeah,
just keep going back and forth. But so the thing that I didn't really click in my head until I watched it was I didn't really put one and one together that how easy of a fight that would be between Human Torch and Pyro. I'm like, you can't throw fire at the person who controls fire. Like that just what like I
yeah,
didn't know that like it just didn't click in my head like how easy that would have been for him. Like because when it happened, I was like nah, like that shouldn't have happened. Like Pyro was like Pyro, but then I was like, wait, that's like saying I'm gonna shoot bullets at Magneto and not expect Magneto to control all the
yeah.
bullets. You know what I mean? So it
Just
made a
because
lot of sense. So that was good. I like how the before I get into my really favorite cameo of all of them,
yeah,
I liked how in the background the people that were at Cassandra Nova's lair,
Yeah.
I like how there was a lot of background characters that were variants that a lot of people weren't pointing out.
Yeah.
There was one specific guy in the background who happened to be a variant for what is his name? That's Deadshot? No, not Deadshot. Bullseye. He was
Yeah.
Bullseye, but he was in there. And then I like how Ryan Reynolds did a whole, you're the Juggernaut of the year because it was a twin guy playing him. And then you had what is his name? Azizel or the the guy who that's
The
red that
red
that
Nightcrawler.
teleport. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good cameos, but to get into the main cameos that I know people are gonna want to talk about that I've when this scene happened, like I literally was like laying reclining in my chair, and then as soon as I seen the one, I was like, "Holy fucking shit!" Like I didn't think this dude was gonna be in here. But
Yeah.
started off with the Electra, awesome. They already had confirmed her being in there, so I already knew she was in there. It was good,
Yeah.
it was great. And then here come my next two favorite cameos for the whole movie. First one, the one that made me pop up out of my seat, Blade. When I seen Wesley Snipes, bro, I was like, "What the fuck?" Like, how? Like this one, they covered that one up. That one did not get spoiled. Nothing. It was
Yeah.
amazing. And I think the part that I like about it the most, for two reasons: one, that they really played it in well in Deadpool, but Wesley Snipes and Ryan Reynolds hate each other. Going back to Blade Trinity, they literally couldn't shoot their scenes on the same day together because of
Yeah.
how much they disliked each other. And
Yeah.
then here in this movie, uh, I think when they were saying something, and then Blade was like, "I hate you," and he was like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry about that." But it's like his real hatred. Like it wasn't just Blade telling that to Deadpool. It was literally Wesley Snipes talking to Ryan Reynolds like, "I hate you.
Yeah.
Like I don't like you." So like
Yeah.
the fact
That
that
was
they got
that.
him in here to do it, I was like, that already had made the movie for me. I was like, "Yo, this was amazing. This was good. This was awesome. You can cut it right there, and I'll be happy." And then who walks in? Remy LeBeau. Fucking Channing Tatum as Gambit, right? And then I think one thing that in my first initial watching, that kind of went over my head, and then I got it
Yeah.
on my second viewing was his accent, because he does talk with a very thick, Bayou Southern accent. It's very
Yeah.
very thick. But then when I heard Channing Tatum do it, the first time I watched, I was like, oh man, like he couldn't really hold the accent. He
Yeah.
can't do it. Like he shouldn't have done it. But then I really thought about it the next time I watched it. I was like, wait, maybe he's making it that bad on purpose because he knows he can't do that accent right. So he's gonna overdo it and kill it and mess it up on purpose. And then the fact that he was like, I don't understand what he's saying. This could be very important exposition right now. Like it's really bad. And then the whole thing before I hand it off to you is one thing I really liked about Gambit too was like how everyone was like, "Oh, we should do this for our world. Like I want to do it. Like I want to get my chance to do it right." And it was like,
Yeah.
or I could have done it, or something for that never was, or to show you what I could have done,
Yeah.
because he was supposed to be. I think I think he got announced as Gambit like when they first. I think it did were introduced Deadpool 2 at Comic Con. However, whenever Deadpool 2 got introduced,
Yeah.
so he was like listed as Gambit for a long time now, and then
Yeah.
never came to fruition. So to me, it was just funny how every line of dialogue that he had was like, or what we wish we could have done, or what you might have had, or what could have happened, or it was just so funny that he
Yeah.
was like playing on that so much. But I
Yeah.
would say my two favorite ones for sure, Blade, because I never thought Ryan Reynolds and Wesley Snipes would ever be together again, let alone in a big movie like this. And then to
Yeah.
finally see not only Gambit in the movie, but how comic accurate his suit was, his powers. I felt like he kicked ass, like the way he
Yeah.
got to
The
do the
fight
long
scene was
distance
dope.
magic, close up magic, and then he even had a staff. Everything about him was freaking. It was great. Like, that's what that. Those two are my favorite for sure.
So let me just say this: the whole Blade thing was just like me mind blowing. I think the exact quote was like, "I don't like you," and then Deadpool's like, "You never did," like,
Yeah, yeah,
and then, and everyone was like that, and then just the little callbacks in there where they're saying, "Hey, Magneto's dead," and then when they said, "Oh, Daredevil was here too," and he died, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and she's like, "It's fine,"
it's like
because
that's right because of Ben
because
Affleck
that
and her.
yeah, Ben
Yeah,
Affleck and their marriage and all that stuff, right? And then I was like, yo, this is funny, like, and then like I'm all seeing these like not kids, but like younger 20-year-olds like watching it, and they're like, it's going over
yeah,
their head. I'm like,
and,
bro, do you not
and I'm
get
glad you brought that
this?
up too because like a big part of, I forgot who I was, one of my coworkers I was talking to, and I told this to them, was like, a lot of my movie experience depends on how much, like, how good or bad the audience is when I'm watching it. So I was
Yeah,
sitting next to some younger guys, whatever. So when
yeah,
Channing Tatum comes out on, on the thing, me excited because I knew that he was cast as, Gambit for so many years now.
yeah.
Uh, there's some kids to my right were like, "Oh man, they got the guy from 21 Jump Street in here." I was like, what are you talking about right now? I'm just like, if you don't know, please just stay quiet this whole time. Like, you're about to ruin this movie for me. You're ruining the scene. But
Yeah.
yeah, just go ahead though.
And then the Channing Tatum, let me just a little more insight. He was talked about auditioning for the Origins Wolverine, but it obviously went to the other actor, but it conflicted with his schedule for GI Joe, which was also recording during the time before it got released. So they were like, "Oh, if we ever do a solo film," which in my head, I never saw Gambit being a solo film character, kind of like Hawkeye. Like I've never saw Hawkeye being a solo film character. I love Gambit. Like whenever I used to play like Marvel vs. Capcom or even just like pretend superheroes, like I would use like his kinetic power as like one of my abilities as a kid growing up, like using things and making them explode, all that stuff. But I never saw his character being like a solo film character, and so that's when they casted Channing Tatum out and said he was gonna have his solo film. I was like, how's that work? And then they announced like Julie B's thing, Julie B's, Julie B's, one's the Rainbow Girl.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
and I was like,
Yeah,
no,
Jubilee.
stop doing the side characters. Give me another X-Men movie,
Jubilee.
Um, Jubilee. I'm gonna get canceled because I think that's like a chicken restaurant. But yeah, so those two cameos were really good. I would say one of the ones, because I don't think you actually named a throwaway one, was the sling ring one. I was like that was one that was like really cheap. I felt like it moved the thing along, but it was like if the TSA could get in there, I'm pretty sure they have like a TSA thing to get them out of there. The whole sling ring thing. I was like, dude. So you're saying anyone with the sling ring could get into the void and all that stuff, the end of time and all that stuff? It was cheap in my opinion. I felt like that was one that didn't need to be in there.
Yeah, I think
Um,
it kind of called back on one of the earlier movies that I watched with Godzilla versus Kong. It felt
mm,
like one of that one where they did like the whole hike to get to the thing, and it was
yeah,
like a 2 minute walk the other way to get to where they were in the beginning. So I kind of
yeah,
felt like it was like one of those things to kind of hurry it up to the other part of the story.
yeah. But as far as my favorite cameo, or at least my favorite take, was the nice pool.
Nice pull. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
in. I can't believe I forgot to mention him, bro. I think, probably was my favorite part of this whole movie was him, just
Yeah.
because I felt like, I don't know, just his whole thing. He was like, "Oh, you're gonna regenerate." He was like, "Regenerate," and I was like, "Yeah, this dude, he hit that nice pull. I think stole the whole movie for me."
Yeah, so obviously they play on his Ryan Reynolds being an attractive male, all that stuff, his long hair, all that's like him being the opposite of Deadpool, and he's like, I can do fourth wall breaks too. The proposal, and I'm like, bro, I was like, dude, I love this, and you can just tell the whole time Deadpool just hates this version of him. And one of the things I was hoping that they played on was like them both being voted like sexiest man alive. Like I
Oh,
thought
okay.
they both were gonna get like they were gonna do something with it, or at least like Deadpool was gonna have like a poster or something that has it. And that was the other thing that I missed in the beginning credits. Like they gave everyone like their names and all that stuff, like
On the bones.
which is right. But I liked in the first two films where they were making fun of everybody that they were naming.
Okay, yeah,
I like that aspect of like, oh, trying to figure out who it was. But I felt like this, since it was the Desi film, it's like, no, we're gonna give credit to where it's due. And
yeah,
it's not gonna be like that funny thing. Which opening scene, amazing. Like that's what
yeah.
really was like, yo, this is gonna be a great ass movie. Like because like you get that NSYNC, you get the TSA getting brought in, like you get all that stuff, and I feel like the exposition of it wasn't too long and all that stuff. But yeah, let's. Do you have any questions for me that you wanted to ask?
I don't know. So I kind of pivot a little bit, just kind of throw it in the middle because I'm pretty sure we're
Yeah,
gonna have some other good stuff to talk about later. Is there
yeah.
anything that stuck out to you that maybe you didn't like about the movie, or like what were some flaws or some things that stuck out? You're like, okay, this could have been better here. This could have been better there.
I would say the sling ring thing was definitely one for me, and then also Cassandra's um like her changing of heart, like not she was still evil, but like she was like, I'm gonna let you guys go. Like
Yeah, that was a very much that was a Martha moment as well.
I was like, what? Like just because they didn't let you die, and I was like, how are you not dying? Like I understand you have like telepathic things, but are you controlling your blood for not bleeding out? Like once they took out the helmet, and I was like, this makes no sense to me. Um, and like she was so OP just for her to be nerfed by that. And that's the thing that I have an issue with these latest Marvel like villains. They nerf them so much in the third act, and I hate it. And like we didn't even get a dope fight scene at the end. We just literally got Madonna overpowering the main villain. That was it. Like it wasn't a fight. It was literally just, oh yeah, we're gonna use friendship to destroy you. And as popular as that is in shonen jump and anime shows, like I don't care. I want fights. I want fight scenes. The dope fight scenes. There was a bunch of dope fight scenes. Let me just say that dope fight scenes. If you're into fight scenes and you haven't, if you're crazy and you haven't seen Deadpool and Wolverine yet, go watch it. But there's a bunch of dope fight scenes that you're gonna. And then the second thing was the throwaway scenes that we got in the trailers, like the saber tooth scene, as well as the flex scenes between Deadpool and Wolverine. I was like, oh, these those things that I don't like seeing in trailers, which I understand. Like, I don't know how many trailers they used to release for movies, but I feel like they release like 20 different trailers before a movie comes out. I'm like, I think I basically saw the movie,
Yeah, I
and
feel like
and I
I think one. I think now they should just move forward just like one, and that's it.
yeah, I think it's like if you do two or three, it's cool. Just do like hints of it. Don't make a super different trailer, you know.
Yeah,
Or yeah, it just it ruins the movie experience for me. Like I hate looking and watching trailers when people are like, "Oh, have you seen the new trailer?" I'm like, "No, I'm not watching any trailers. I'm gonna go to the movie and watch what I want to watch." You know, if I
yeah,
end up seeing it, by all means. Like if I go to the movies and I see a trailer, I'm like, "Oh, that's dope." You know, that's the trailer I'm gonna go based off of. But I'm not gonna go on YouTube and all these other platforms to go watch a trailer that just dropped. You know, like I rather do it at the movies where it's supposed to happen. You know, compared to like watching every single one that comes out because there's a lot of spoilers and then I don't like that. Like and then obviously here we give a lot of spoilers if people haven't watched the films, but it's
yeah.
just like um that's by choice, you know. And if you're not letting me see the movie for the first time, like the X-23, I was kind of like, oh, dude, you could have like not
Could have
done it,
saved
but
it.
I kind of assumed she was gonna come back. Like it was at the end of Logan's story, so I assume she's still alive, so she has every right to come back. Um, And yeah, also like I was saying, like I don't think Disney was needed to make this movie. Like I'm happy with the cooperation and all that stuff, but like the whole TSA subdivision, like it was really cheap. Like if it was actually like an actual villain of the TSA or something, I just thought it was like, oh yeah, I'm just trying to get things back to where work is like good and stuff. Like it was like a worker justifying his means. I was like, no, I need an actual villain, bro. Don't give me this little corporate businessman trying to do a different thing, kind of like they did in Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantum, whatever thing, the second one.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you have any things that you felt like it kind of missed or like it
So, so for
shouldn't have
me, I
done?
feel like a lot of the things you just said are kind of a bunch of my gripes. And then for me, for going to school for VFX, I felt as soon as I start seeing some wonky stuff, like it just takes me out. So I felt
Yeah,
like as much as I loved the opening intro, like the opening credits, that's
yeah,
like the. Nah, I'm not gonna take away from it. It was good. The song, the
yeah,
fighting, the choreograph, everything was great.
yeah,
But the CGI was really bad. Like there was a lot of like every time that he hit him with any part of the bones, you can just tell like it was straight up like it was not like you can not just that it was CGI, but it was like
yeah.
bad CGI. So I felt like for as that being such a popular scene and such being like something that they lead off with,
Opening scene, yeah,
you would have thought that they would have spent more time with it. But I felt like that was just a scene that probably was one of the last shots that they worked on and didn't
yeah,
get the time that it deserved. And then not just that scene, but the last fight scene, I guess, when they're fighting all the Deadpool, what I forgot what they call them, but when they're fighting
yeah,
all of them, we'll talk about the mask in a second since you're wearing it.
yeah,
But when they're like about to like break through it, there's one part where you can tell it's like, oh, those are just CGI models. Like that's not even them anymore. It's like that's just a
yeah,
straight model that they're using. So like I don't know, a lot of it could have been integrated a lot better. maybe a small thing for people, but for me, for someone that went to school for it, it bothers me a lot. And then I know you don't go to a Deadpool movie for the storyline, but I felt like this movie had a lot of plot holes in it. I felt
Yeah.
like, you know, like you kind of touched on it where you said this the Disney stuff probably could have been taken out, or the MCU stuff could have been taken out, and been just the same movie, just as good. But like I felt with if you're going to use the TVA and something that's already been established with 2 seasons, not just one but 2 seasons of Loki, kind of try to stick to that because I
Hmm.
felt like the anchor point thing didn't make sense at all. Like I didn't, I personally didn't like it. I don't know why they did that.
Random.
Yeah, it was one. They just threw it in there. It had no. They had never touched on it ever in any previous MCU iteration, let alone where the
Yeah.
TVA was canonized. They just threw that in there. And then
Yeah.
two was like when he went on the quest to start fighting Wolverine.
Yeah.
Technically, that's not even where he should have pulled Deadpool out of because where Deadpool's at now, that is still pre Logan. So he shouldn't
Yeah.
even like Logan is still technically alive
Yeah.
in that time that he's like living and where this movie is supposed to take place. So
Yeah.
instead of being granted, like I said, we got all these great, awesome cameos and variants on this other stuff, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But like storyline wise, like you could have literally just went to wherever the hell Logan was living at, got him from the same timeline, and used him to say help save the timeline they're at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and so the fact that I don't know, it was just weird. And then yeah, so then those are like the two big things, plot holes really. And then the one last thing I think I'll kind of make comment on, touch on a little bit because again, it may not be interesting to a lot of people. For to me, like kind of like really stuck out
Hmm.
was going from that awesome opening to explaining what was happening, with him and his life and his friends. And then once we get Logan introduced into the storyline, I kind of felt like it was just like I was watching, like I forgot I was watching a movie for a second. Like I forgot,
Yeah.
it kind of felt like it was either like an advertisement or a commercial for Deadpool. Like I felt like
Hmm.
that move beginning wasn't really too much, and then once Logan gets introduced, it's like, oh yeah, we're kind of watching the movie right now, and then like the story kind of goes. So I feel like that kind of was like, I don't know, if, like to me it was a negative. It just felt like
Yeah.
it didn't feel like it fit. Like I said, it just at least story wise, it just didn't really fit. But yeah, I don't know that and like when we get into the ratings later on, that's kind of what brings down my score a little bit is those three things. But yeah, overall, just I mean, in the grand spectrum of things, this was an awesome, great movie. But like I felt like that stuff is the stuff that kind of was eating at me for like the whole time. I was like, well, that doesn't really make sense. That I like that doesn't make sense to me. Or just even how like when we finally get introduced to Cassandra Nova, she's overpowered to the max. But then like I said, she doesn't use her powers.
Yeah.
She yeah they nerf her. Or even when like they introduce Eliath, like oh he needs to eat. We're gonna leave you out here to eat. But as long as you're inside Ant Man's skeleton, you're okay when he passes over. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't
Homie
make
takes
sense.
whole ass buildings down,
Yeah,
and all of
it's
Ant-Man's
freaking taking
corpses.
everything in
Yeah.
its path on its way to you, but only somehow the people who are outside of Ant Man's body are the only the ones that are affected. Like that's what
Hmm.
like. There's a lot of things like that throughout the movie that I'm like, I don't know. That didn't really make too much sense. So, and then just the whole. I felt like the guy's motive in the TVA. I felt like he was kind of maybe added in during the rewrites when this movie when the writer strike happened because I
Yeah.
felt like maybe, and I don't know if this is true. This is me just speculating, but I felt like his character got added in when they were like, "Oh, this would be perfect for Owens Wilson's character
Yeah.
and Loki's, from Loki to be in here, and he'll be him." But then they
Yeah.
either couldn't get Owen Wilson, or maybe with the way Morbius was written in Loki, they just didn't fit that role correctly. So like, well,
Yeah.
let's just throw this guy in there, and his whole motive is even though we're under a new management, quote unquote, under the
Yeah.
TVA, and we want to save people, I'm going to show them that they need me because I'm going to start getting rid of timelines again. Like that, it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. Like you're on a whole new path because now
Yeah.
Loki, is the keeper and all this other stuff. So his motive didn't really fit on what was happening. But yeah, those are just some of my gripes. But back to the mask, though. What did you think when they finally revealed it?
The when he put it on,
Yeah,
dude, I was like, dude, like me and my personal opinion, I was like, you guys could have saved a lot of money just putting a mask on this dude. Like that, Ryan Reynolds doesn't have to be doing all the acts and performances that Deadpool does because he could have a stunt double because he's wearing a
Mhm.
mask. They could have did the same thing for Hugh Jackman, but there I was like, you're screwed. Now you have to like you're keeping the mask off. Like Hugh Jackman literally has to do every single thing now. Like, and I forgot how old Hugh Jackman is. I think he's like his late 40s, early 50s or something.
He's in his 50s.
Um, yeah, so it's like, bro, like he's gonna have to do all these stunts, and the
Hmm.
stunts weren't crazy, and the fight scenes were like well choreographed and all that stuff. But yeah, I was really excited. Before I forget though, let me get back to your comment about the continuity as far as like Deadpool timeline and all that stuff with Logan. The way I saw this movie was that this is a different Deadpool variant than the other two Deadpool movies. And that's the only reason it makes sense to me because yes, Deadpool goes back in time and he fixes a bunch of things and all that stuff, but he also kills his original self in that time series too. Like, so it's like, is it connected to Wolverine Origins? Is Logan connected to this? And also, when he goes into the X Men mansion, and he runs into the other X Men. Or first of all, he's making a joke. Hey, it's like you're the only two X Men that are here. If it's to be tied into the whole Logan cinematic universe, it's like, hold up. So where's Charles Xavier? Where's the X Men team and all that? I understand it's a copyright thing and all that stuff, but also it's like you see the what do you call it, X Men First Class group, and you're like, oh wait, this is a different time series and all that stuff. But I was like, but then why would Colossus be in the thing? It's a whole play on the Fox network, but obviously Wolverine and them aren't noticeable in that. So if it comes down to it, I think this is a variant where Logan still happens in that scene where he still dies. Um, but it also is a scene where it's a different Deadpool because the in the ending, I think it was like the of Logan, or was it Deadpool 2 where he tries to, oh yeah, Deadpool 2 where he tries to go revive him with the, what do you call it, the Weapon X green stuff.
Hmm.
He's like, ah, I can't do it, like we would be so great together, yada yada. So he doesn't do it. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking this one goes back in time to where, because he looks like he hadn't seen Logan died when they show it on the screen. And he's like, "Oh, okay, then let me go back to that time." And he sees Logan for the first time. He digs him up, and he's like, "Oh shit, you're really dead."
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like I was like, it makes sense of that. But I will agree with you on the TVA aspect. Like it's like stick to one thing. The only thing I could justify the whole mix up with the TVA thing is because King the Conqueror, Jonathan Majors is canceled. So it's like hard to go anywhere with that TVA storyline anymore. Now that Loki ended with being the tree of life, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
it's like, what do you really do? You don't destroy worlds anymore because Loki basically saved all the worlds by grabbing them, right?
Yeah, and I
Um,
feel like that's what they got repurposed to was
yeah,
instead of pruning alternate timelines, they're just allowing them to grow,
yeah.
which
So
kind of helps out with this aspect because technically when he went back and when he got Cable's thing and went back in time and saved everybody, that's technically an alternate branch that
yeah,
branched off. So now that Loki did it, it's allowing it to grow.
yeah. Time travel is weird.
Yeah,
Like that's why.
yeah, that's why people kind of stay away from it.
Yeah, that's why I hate it, and then they do take shots at it. He's like, I'm done with these variants and stuff, and like and multiverse thing. Can we just keep it simple? Like, and I was like,
Yeah,
and then we get the Deadpool army come out, and I was like, oh, so yeah, man, that I agree with you on that aspect. But what do you feel about the mask? What do you feel about his costume, Deadpool's costume, when they remade it, and then you see Nice Pool's all like armored out, the golden deagles and all that stuff,
I
like,
feel like Dice will definitely have probably the best costume because
yeah,
of like the plates and everything. I like that whole scene with the whole Taylor. Like even when he's in the TVA, that whole little thing when he was like your Taylor is definitely freaking what did he say, like a molester or whatever.
yeah,
And then I think probably one of the better jokes I like landed in my theater too, like with my audience, was
yeah,
when he was talking to that guy and he was like, he's staring at me with the fuck me eyes or whatever. And he's like,
yeah,
who are you calling your wife? And he's like, HR. And he's like, your wife works on HR. So like, that whole joke, like it landed like so hard in our theater. So like, there was
yeah,
a lot of really good jokes in there. But to get back to like the whole question, I loved all the suits. I think everyone had really good like costumes, like every
yeah.
for everyone. So I felt like Hugh Jackman's was really good. I felt like if I was going to show the mask, I get what they try to do. They try to save it for the third act and everything else, but I felt like maybe because the way they found him, maybe. But I was gonna say they probably
Yeah,
should have had him wear it in the beginning, which would have made
yeah,
more sense to me. But then again, like I said, he was not really wanting to do that because of how he found him in his timeline and
yeah,
everything else like that. So I guess it makes sense, but I don't know. I felt like he should have worn it more, definitely. And
yeah,
then I think another one of my favorite jokes too was what he had meant. It was like, what did he say? Like they said it earlier in the movie just for it to pay off later on when he was like,
yeah,
oh, like he's 50 years old. He put on weight. That's why he's covering it up or
yeah. After
whatever.
the
And then
divorce.
when his thing is blown off, he's just still all jacked. I'm like, and then he shows him like staring at him. I was like, okay, that was good. And then another joke that I think that really really worked out well too, when they were like driving to Cassandra Nova's after they met up with Blade and everybody. They're like they had like the rocket launcher, and it was like, oh, who's this? As like, oh, it's Punishers. Which one? There's been five of them. He's like, but
Yeah.
there's only one Blade. There's only ever gonna be one Blade. And then he like looks at the
Hey.
camera like, yeah, there's not. You've been recast already. So, but then again, at the same time too, though, it's like technically Mahershala Ali is now the new Blade, but at the same time, that movie is kind of
Been pushed back a couple
yeah,
times.
a lot. So they're like, well, maybe he might be right. I don't know. But I don't know. So there's like a lot of good jokes that landed like that. But as far as the costumes and everything, it was great. It was good. Uh, again, just yeah, nice pool was really dope. Another one that we haven't brought up yet that talked about, like, how did you feel about dog pool? About that whole line? It was like trying to steal him away from nice pool and everything, and when they introduced him.
Yeah, I think it was a good little subplot. I guess like effect on the movie. That dog is ugly, dude. Like I was all done, and then Ryan Reynolds licking it with his tongue. I was like, dude, it just reminded me of like my uncle and my aunt who liked like kissing dogs with their mouths and all that stuff. Like, and I'm like, oh, dogs are clean as mouth. No, they don't. No, they don't. But yeah, that dog pool was pretty funny to me. Like that whole scene, and he's like, "Oh, something's gonna happen to you. Like I promise to take care of it." Like I was like, "Oh, that's not
A little bit of
foreshadowing if I ever
foreshadowing,
seen it."
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and then the funniest thing about that was like when he was getting shot up and all that, and they're using him like a human shield. He was all like, I was watching, I was like, he doesn't regenerate, does he? Like in my head, and then like literally they pull him to the side. He's like, why aren't you regenerating? Regenerate? And I was like,
And I
I
like
was
how
like,
out of all the Deadpools that were there, he was the only one that couldn't regenerate. Like
yeah,
that to me, I think that made it land a lot harder. Was that the fact that, especially because he was like, he used them as a shield, shot him.
yeah,
They were put away, and then he heard that he couldn't regenerate, and then uses them as a shield again, and then stops in the middle. Was like, "You're gonna be okay. Say it,
say it.
say it." But he's still getting shot, and then gets his head blown off. So it was like, so that part was good, and then they all stopped when he put up dog pull and he just
Yeah,
walks over. I was like, yeah, that was good too. So like, there
yeah, that,
was this movie was good comedically. Like the timing between Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds landed really good. And then
yeah,
even everyone else, like going back to the one we talked to earlier about Electra with Jennifer Garner and Ben Affleck, she was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, nah, it's okay." And then there was a lot of good timing between a lot of the actors in this movie that were like, okay, like, you can tell that they really worked on this really well.
yeah. And I will say like one of the advantages that Deadpool has, it makes fun of itself, right? It does the callbacks, it breaks the fourth wall, and it'll make fun of itself. It'll make fun of like directing, it'll make fun of like issues with Hollywood, the actors, the lore, and it's able to do that on a scheme because you're able to break the fourth wall and relate to the audience. Other superhero films, it's like, oh, we interpreted this character the wrong way. Oh, this character is acting differently than he would in the comics, and they can't speak on that, you know? Um, Prime example, the Justice League thing. Like all the characters are being rushed in. They can't say, "Hey, you're not getting the full Snyder cut." Like there's more in-depth reasons why I act this way. There's more to my character than just this little one-liners that we got in the Whedon cut, you know? Like they can't say that. Like Deadpool can. So it's like I think that's where the Deadpools differ and it has an advantage, you know? It doesn't sell itself short. And that's where like where my argument earlier was if like Deadpool helped the MCU or the MCU helped Deadpool. I was like, I don't really see the MCU helping it. I feel like the MCU actually crippled this movie a bit than it needed to because like I didn't need anything the MCU offered in this movie to the extent where it was gonna be it made the movie, you know? Like the Thor
I agree.
crying over Deadpool
Oh,
scene.
we didn't even talk about that. Yeah.
I was like, is that gonna be in Secret Wars? That better be in Secret Wars. Don't ever just tease me with that. Like I wanna see something like that. Like I wanna see why he cries for Deadpool and all that
I'm
stuff.
glad you brought up Secret Wars because I feel like, I mean, with the announcement now of Joe and
Already
Anthony Russo coming back to Secret Wars and
yeah.
everything, I feel like that is gonna be in Secret Wars because like that was such like a impactful, especially because Chris Hemsworth is in that scene. It's like it's not
Yeah.
like it was just a Thor variant or someone else.
Yeah.
It was like it was Chris Hemsworth. Like so, it
Yeah.
was him. He was in there. He was crying over him, and then the fact that every time he was asleep, he woke up to saying Thor or why is he crying or he just kept bringing it back up. So I felt
Yeah.
like it's definitely going to be in a later movie, like if not in
Yeah.
Secret Wars for sure. Because again, another part of that whole TVA thing that I was like, that was just really good. Like I felt like a lot of this movie, like I don't know, just kept playing off itself. It was really good, but that whole Thor crying scene, I can't believe I forgot to bring that up. But like that was
Yeah.
definitely one of my favorite parts too, because like it just stuck with him the whole time. Like why is Thor crying? Like
Yeah.
bring that up. Let's see that. And he's like, oh no, we're showing you too much. Don't even worry about
Yeah.
that.
So yeah, so like I said, I'm excited for the MCU. It's been a really bad moment in the MCU with everything going on. And then recently they just brought RDJ back. Spoilers if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it, where have you been, dude? Like yeah, man, it's as far as like Deadpool, I thought it was a good movie. I don't know if you wanted to talk about anything else or if you're good to
I
go
got
into the
one last
rankings.
question for you before we move
Go
on
ahead.
into ratings and and
Yeah.
pack it up and get out of here because we
I just
talked
thought of
about a
one
lot.
too. Go ahead.
But one last thing I wanted to ask was like, and maybe I'll just ask you. I don't want to kind of cut off your answer, but how do you feel this movie sets up the MCU moving forward? Because like the what's it called, like the reviews that I seen before I went into the movie were saying that this had like huge MCU implications moving forward, but I didn't really see it. So I,
Yeah.
I think I have an idea, but I want to see if our ideas match. So what do you think?
So like we mentioned the Secret Wars thing, right? That's the highly anticipated next act that's going to be happening now that the King Dynasty isn't going to be a thing. Um, I'm really looking forward to um, that aspect. But as far as this being a a change in like the MCU's path, like I didn't see it. Like it's like Loki ended off pretty well. Um, this movie ends off pretty well, but I don't see the connection. Like it felt like a forced connection if I'm being honest. Like literally that only that Thor scene was like, oh, that's gonna be in the MCU or something, right? That's potential and all that stuff of him being a hero and all that. Oh, that hurt. Don't wear these masks, dude. They really uncomfortable. I'm probably losing like 3 pounds of weight on my off my face. The camera adds 10 pounds. I'm losing three right here. Um, yeah, it I guess like if they're like I don't see the connection that people are saying that it makes a lot of claims towards the MCU. I'm still waiting to see what they do with Doctor Strange. Like if I'm being honest, I'm like you guys just said he's leaving and then he's gonna come back. Like what's going on with that? Um and yeah, I think we're getting another Eternals movie. I don't know if it's like I haven't
They
been
already
like I haven't
confirmed
seen
that's
the
still
comic.
the.
Yeah, like we were supposed to get like an Astro one too. Like we're supposed to get a couple movies. We haven't got Blade yet, so it's like, where's the MCU going? I think they're gonna try to set up Secret Wars. They're going Thunderbolts route too, who are gonna be in Secret Wars, at least comic based, like depending on which one they go with. Doctor Doom, Fantastic Four. I'm really anticipating that one. I guess the Fantastic Four call out it might be a thing, but it's just like Chris Evans isn't gonna be. I don't think he's gonna be in the Fantastic Four thing. I'm really excited about it though. Like I think Pedro Pascal is a really good actor, and I'm interested to see how he does with Reed Richards. Um, I really hope they bring RDJ into the mix sooner, and they don't just make him like a cameo at the end of that movie.
Yeah.
Um, but we'll see. We don't know how recordings are going and all that stuff, video scripting, writing, all that stuff. Like, I honestly don't know where the path that MCU is going. Even them bringing back RDJ was like, all right, I don't know if this is like took a cheap thing as far as like a variant because if we are getting a variant of the Fantastic Fours, we're obviously not getting John Krasinski's back, and we're obviously not getting the OG Chris Evans back. But they brought Chris Evans back for Human Torch, so I was like, I guess you could bring back a variant of RDJ that is Doctor Doom. It's like I'm okay with it, but it's just like that predated MCU. That's the reason I was like that predated MCU. So like you have other actors you could have brought in as Doom. You know, like one of the actors, I don't know, we don't have to go too crazy into this, but I thought Keanu Reeves was a good take at being Doctor Doom.
I want Keanu Reeves to be Ghost Rider. I think he'll be a good Ghost Rider.
Yeah, but in the grand scheme of all, Ghost Rider has technically already been done with what do you call it?
Nicolas Cage.
No, I'm talking about the Shield here, Agents of Shield.
But yeah, but that they already said that that's not really canon though.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a time. The time
Yeah,
travel
yeah,
multiverse thing is
you're
so
right. It's
confusing,
part of the
dude.
multiverse. You're right.
Yeah, like they might even bring back Nicolas Cage and all that stuff. But I'm literally taking this mask. Hold on. Surprise! It's not Hugh Jackman. That shit was starting to hurt. I think that's why he didn't wear it the whole movie.
Maybe.
It's like really uncomfortable. It was like starting to mess with my ears. I was like, "Yo, this is hurting way too hard." I tried, guys. I'm sorry. I failed. I failed my world. Um, let's see. I don't know if that answers your question. Like, I didn't see
Yeah, I think it
the
does.
the implications of it being more to the MCU. Like, it didn't bring more to me, at least.
Yeah, for me, I feel like it's just gonna go more. They're completely scrapping, the multiverse saga with Kang. They're just getting rid of that, and now they're just gonna step into like the mutants
Yeah,
because to kind of speak on, more of the Comic Con announcements. I guess adamantium is gonna play a big role in Captain America 4. So now they have adamantium in there, which is gonna lead obviously who's really famous for that, Wolverine. So
yeah,
I feel like that's gonna go hand in hand with each other. But I don't know. I just feel like they're going to be more of a mutants type of thing going forward.
yeah. I, to be honest, the Captain America New World Order, I think it's called. That trailer looked pretty dope. Like I saw it, well, obviously watching this one, I was like, "Yo, this might be good." Like it looks better than Winter Soldier, Falcon and Winter Soldier like series. And I'm not gonna get into that, but that was a series where I was like, I don't see why people are so high on this one. Like it's all
I thought it was
right.
good. I
Like,
thought it was good.
we'll get into that later when we get to the what do you call it, Phase Four MCU thing. But yeah, a question I had to ask for you that could probably lead into our rankings is like, if me and you were in the MCU, which characters would we be? And if one of us is like Marvel Jesus, or if one of us is the anchor being, which one would we be? And we can even tie it into this thing, and I'll give you my answer after you give me yours.
So you're saying who would I be? Is
Yeah,
that what you're saying?
like
Oh man,
in your mindset, like who do you think I am, and who do you think you are?
oh man, that's a phew, loaded question.
And then we could include the Fox universe too. Like let's screw it. Like
Oh man, I wish I had prep time. This is a loaded question.
it's
If I
all
had to
open
had to answer
discussion.
real quick for me, I feel like I'm like a roadie, like someone who's like there, but more of a support character than a main character. I feel like
All
that's how I
right.
can see myself kind of in there, where when called upon, I'll do good, but
Yeah.
probably not the first person you're gonna call, maybe. So I'll probably pick roadie, and then you, man, oof. For some reason, I'm thinking an X-Men for sure. I don't know why. I don't know why. I'm thinking I'm the first
It's
person that
probably
popped in my
the
head when you
mask.
asked me. I was going to say Beast. I was going to say smart. You know, obviously Beast, but
Hurt. It's probably a kid version of him, not the. Like, we had to do a video on the X Men movies, dude. Like that could be another one that we do. And then the second part of it, Anchor, Marvel Jesus or Anchor being, so literally Deadpool or Wolverine. Which one, what's our dynamic in your opinion?
mm, I feel you're Marvel Jesus and I'm the anchor point in terms of talk that talk. Yeah.
Because honestly, like if I'm being honest, if you don't do the editing, you don't do the scheduling with us, like this thing doesn't happen. Like if something happens to you, we're like, I might try, like to do it, but then I'm like, oh, I'll find someone else to be Adriel, and it's gonna be
Yeah,
like, no, that's not how it works, bro. I'm gonna have a comic accurate Adriel.
yeah, for sure.
Let me answer my own question though. If I would say we were in the MCU, dude, or even in the Fox Fox depiction and all that stuff, I would say that not to diminish like who I am as a being, but seeing on how Johnny Storm was in this movie and then remembering how he was in the other movies, like I wouldn't say I'm a player like him, but like I think I have his charm and his charisma, and I would put you more in the realm of like Doctor Strange. Like you
I can
have your
agree.
profession, you carry yourself a certain way, and you wouldn't take like bullshit from like Tony Stark, like you're
Yeah,
not the main hero, but like you're in the behind the scenes of things, which is what the what do you call it, the monasteries and all that stuff with Doctor
yeah,
Strange are doing. They're doing the behind the scenes fighting dark evils and all that stuff. So I thought that would be more of your character. I would be more Johnny Storm. I couldn't really think of anyone. At work I call myself the Mexican Thor. I'm hoping it catches on someday. They have this whole thing where we were the Avengers, but it's because one of our managers had like an eye patch and he looked like Nick Fury. And so they call us the Avengers, and I was like, does that make me Thor? and then that and then that was just a thing because I don't see myself as the big the big
yeah,
guy, the main guy, but I was like, I'm part of the big three though.
yeah, for
And
sure.
then
Yeah, no, I agree.
as K Dot says, after big three, it's just big me, like. But yeah, as far as that, like I think that's our dynamic, and I agree with you. Like you're the you're the anchor being. If this doesn't work out, like it's because of you. It's your fault. No, I'm saying.
That's
Just
maybe. Yeah, you're right.
yeah,
I can't be lazy on it. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. But yeah, man, I think that's good. Oh, ratings. We got to do the ratings before we call this one because this is a long video now that I notice it. But let's get to the ratings. What did we think of Deadpool? We'll start with you.
Fantastic movie overall. Jokes land. It was very good comedy in it. Great acting by supporting and by the stars. Overall, through and through, it was really, really good. Except all the negatives that I kind of pointed out earlier, the reasons why it dropped down for me. I've seen a lot of my friends, a lot of people kept texting me and telling me that because they knew I was going to watch it. Everything else, were like, oh, it's a 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. Nah, for me, it definitely, I'm going to lead off by saying it's definitely the best movie that I've seen this year. Definitely
Ooh,
my highest rated movie this
okay.
year. So definitely it's surpassed Godzilla. I had a Godzilla at an 8. Definitely putting this one at an 8.7. Where there's a lot of people that I talked to that kind of made me think about other things in certain ways. So it kind of helped me not notch it up a little bit. Coming
Yeah,
out of the movie, I think both times I was like, yeah, it's an 8.
yeah,
But talking to other people, realizing some things, I'm like, oh no, it's at least an 8.5. And even now, talking through it here with you, I convinced myself to give it a little more. So
yeah,
8.7 is my final scoring on it. 8.7 out of 10.
yeah. Honestly, it's hard because it's like for me, it was like, dude, put it in the 8 range. Like, is it better than Godzilla? Like, is it like I felt Godzilla had its misses, but it still carried with the rest of the franchise.
Yeah,
This one is where I'm like, does it carry with the rest of the franchise? Does it connect well with the MCU? Like it felt if it like I said, if it didn't have the MCU aspect, I feel like this movie would have been amazing. Like it would probably have been a 9, 10 category. Like it would have been like up there. But for me personally, I don't. I guess I could put it up above Godzilla because of all the callbacks, and it's really good. It's a really good movie. Like I'm not saying it's bad. As far as the 8.7 and 8.5, even like I don't think it gets that high. I think maybe an 8.2 or a solid 8 tied with Godzilla. Like because like I literally tell people it's like Godzilla was so good because of the whole MonsterVerse thing and the fight scenes and everything that it brought into with lore and all that stuff. The only drawbacks that I really took from that movie was just the human character aspect.
yeah,
And in this film, it's just like what we said, the continuity, the callbacks were good, but a lot of them were like unnecessary. Well, not a lot of them, but a handful of them were unnecessary. Continuity issues. Um, how does this play in the grand scheme of the multiverse? Get Doctor Strange on you with it. And then that was another thing. You say that a lot. The grand scheme of like cinema and all this stuff, like you say
Yeah,
that a lot. So I'm like the grand. I don't know if you do that on purpose, but it's like every time I hear you say that in movies that don't even have to do with MCU, I'm like, what are you doing, bro? Like
yeah.
you trying
I
to
don't
make a
know.
catchphrase?
Maybe I don't know. Maybe I didn't even realize that. So I don't know.
uh, but yeah, so it's like as far as that, like I'm still trying to figure out where I put this movie, and I watched it twice, which is like it says something about it, but I watched like Godzilla like 4 times,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the 40x aspect of it was really good too. Like I don't feel like I could watch this one in 40x. You could, but it wouldn't be as like different as Godzilla was. What I don't know if you recall, what did I put a Quiet Place at? I think I put a Quiet Place over Godzilla, right?
Nah, I don't think so.
Or
I
I
think
think
it
it
was really
tied
close. Maybe
because
that or maybe it was just under it.
it finally happened. I remember it was like this movie of the summer type of thing. But yeah, I think this was a good movie. I guess I'll just lock in 8.2. I'm not as high as it as most people. As
Yeah,
much as I love it, as much as I went in depth and went to go watch it again, it just came down to me understanding like, yo, this is a good movie, but it's not the best movie I've seen. And
yeah,
then it even makes me want to change my Godzilla ranking to a lot higher if I'm like saying these movies and all that stuff. And I feel like we should do that at the end of the season or at the end of the year and just say, hey, these are all the movies we watched. Where do we rank
evaluation.
them? And like just do like little call outs thing. And we will do that. But just like I think this movie 8.2.
Yeah.
So with that being said, final thoughts. Are we good to do the outro?
Final thoughts? I don't know. All in all, it's really well worth watching. As of today, July 31st, it's only been out for 5 days and it's already made $500 million. So it's widely successful. I do think, and I do say this on all my other reviews, that's like a big point for me. The rewatchability for this movie is really good. It does
It
play out
is.
really well. It doesn't really drag out at any points. But I think you can just go for comedy purposes. Like if you're not one of those people who are really big on keeping up with the stuff that's happened previously with Fox, everything that they've done with the not just the X-Men universe, but
Yeah.
Blade, Elektra, Daredevil, Fantastic Four, Stick. What if you get that one? Everything else, I feel like they play it off really well. So even if you don't know anything about it, the comedy in this movie alone is makes it well. It makes it worth watching. So I think it's a good movie. Obviously, a lot of people like it. And people are saying, quote unquote, the MCU is back. I don't think it ever left, but it's
Yeah.
back apparently, just for the next movie to be okay, and they're gonna be
Yeah.
like, oh, the MCU is dead again. So I don't know. People can't please everyone, but all in all, I think my final thoughts is it was a good movie overall.
Stop throwing shots, dude. I think the MCU is dying. But I think final thoughts as far as me, it's a good movie. Millennials are gonna love it. Actual comic fans and like in depth, like people that watched the old hero movies before the MCU was even a thing, are gonna appreciate this. If you only seen the MCU, you're not really gonna see much of it in this movie. Like you'll get little nods at it, but it's just like as far as a majority of this movie, it's all Fox, WB, all that stuff. Like it's all predating MCU references that you're gonna need to watch. You don't have to watch them, but if you want to appreciate this film, you got to go back and watch those. So all you below 20-year-olds like that are going to these movies that were sitting next to me at the theater that weren't getting any of these references, like go don't watch all of Gossip Girl, but just know Ryan Reynolds' wife's story and all that stuff,
Yeah,
and you'll get a majority of what you need to. Like I said, you don't have to, but it's gonna make your experience of the movie way better. But with that being said, that's us from Talk That Talk. This was an open discussion. If you guys want to see more of these type of videos, let us know. If you guys want us to review a certain movie that you want to recommend that we haven't done that we should do later on this year, just let us know and catch you guys later. Peace.
please.